Modric versus Iniesta. Modric won the Ballon d'Or in 2018, but Iniesta felt like he should have won at least one. Iniesta had Spain in the palm of his hand during their golden run. Euro 2008, World Cup 2010, Euro 2012. I mean, the man made football look easy. Modric didn't have a golden Spain team, but he carried Croatia to the World Cup final. That alone made people rethink midfield greatness. Their styles were night and day. Modric was all about control, smooth turns, outside foot passes, stamina like a marathon runner. Iniesta was like poetry. One touch, glide, release. Every move looked like it was drawn. Both controlled games without shouting, no flashy tattoos, just brains and boots. They also had Champions League medals to spare. Modric was the heart of Real Madrid's three-peat. Iniesta ran the show during Barca's tiki-taka peak. Watching them face off was like a chess match played at full speed, quiet, calm, brutal. Lewandowski versus Benzema. Lewandowski almost had the Ballon d'Or in 2020. Then COVID cancelled it. People still talk about it. 55 goals that season. And that was just normal for him. Benzema, on the other hand, waited. Played second fiddle to Ronaldo for years. Then when Ronaldo left, he exploded. In 2022, he finally got the Ballon d'Or he deserved. Both strikers crossed the 600-goal mark. Lewandowski punished Bundesliga defenders for fun. Hat-tricks, tap-ins, headers, all in one match. Benzema became Mr. Clutch for Madrid. Against PSG, Chelsea, City, it didn't matter. One chance, one goal, silence. What's scary is that both hit their peak in their 30s. When strikers usually fade, they turned into monsters, clinical, confident, cold-blooded, and neither needed the spotlight, just the ball and one mistake from you. Salah versus Mane. Teammates, rivals, frenemies. Salah and Mane powered Liverpool's return to glory. Goals, assists, pressing, everything. But under all that success, there was tension. You could feel it. One wouldn't pass, the other would fume. Klopp acted like everything was fine. But fans knew something was brewing. Then came AFCON 2022, Senegal versus Egypt, Mane versus Salah. Mane won, took the penalty, lifted the trophy. Salah walked off, heartbroken. It was the first time they faced off with everything on the line, and Mane came out on top. At Liverpool, Mane was the engine. Salah was the finisher. One did the dirty work. The other got the glory and the penalties. Klopp always backed both. But deep down, people asked, who was more important? The truth is, you needed both. The rivalry made them better. Lampard versus Gerrard. Same nation, same era. But who's better? Lampard had the goals, over 200 from midfield. Gerrard had his moments. You remember Istanbul 2005, the FA Cup final, the long-range screamers, both captains, both leaders, both never got to play together properly for England. People blamed the managers, some blamed the system, but truth is, they were both too dominant in their own way. Lampard timed his runs like a striker. Gerrard flew into tackles like a warrior. One built Chelsea's engine, the other was Liverpool's heartbeat, and the debate never died. Lampard got the Premier League titles. Gerrard got the Champions League miracle. In pubs and barbershops, people still argue. England had two legends and never figured out how to use them. Shame. Scholes versus Vieira. Scholes was quiet, short, and lethal. Vieira was loud, tall, and terrifying. When United and Arsenal ran the Premier League, these two were always in the thick of it. Vieira bossed the midfield physically. Scholes just found space where there was none, and pinged 40-yard passes like it was FIFA. They clashed every time they met. Battle of Old Trafford. Classic. Vieira once tried to bully Gary Neville in the tunnel. Scholes stayed silent, then ran the game. Vieira said Scholes was his toughest opponent. That says it all, that they were total opposites. But they had one thing in common. They hated losing. And when their clubs met, nobody held back. It wasn't just a rivalry. It was a war in midfield form. Drogba versus Rooney. Drogba was power. Rooney was chaos. Both had a hunger for goals and big game moments. Drogba loved finals, scoring in almost all of them. For Rooney, just give him a reason and he'd smash in a volley from 30 yards. When Chelsea faced United, these two were always at the centre. Rooney had that street football energy. Run, shoot, repeat. Drogba bullied defenders like they were kids. During the corners and set pieces, you knew he was going to win the header. Their battles were fierce. It wasn't just about goals, it was about pride. Aside from this, both were legends in their own way. Rooney became United's all-time top scorer. Drogba made Chelsea believe in trophies again. Every time they faced off, it felt like the Premier League final, even if it wasn't. Xavi versus Pirlo. This was chess on grass. Xavi passed teams to death. Pirlo did the same, but with more swagger. They were the brains of their teams. Xavi for Spain and Barcelona, Pirlo for Italy and Milan. When they played each other, it was like watching two master chefs cooking in the same kitchen. 2012 Euro final was brutal. Spain destroyed Italy 4-0. Xavi ran the show. Pirlo didn't even have time to breathe. That was the peak of tiki-taka. Pirlo's elegance wasn't enough, but both still walked off with respect. These guys didn't tackle. They just passed around you until you gave up. No tattoos, no drama, just football IQ off the charts. You didn't even have to support Spain or Italy. You just watched and admired. Kroos versus De Bruyne. Kroos makes football look like a passing drill. Calm, steady, accurate. De Bruyne plays like he's trying to break the net every time he touches the ball. One is a conductor, the other is an explosion. When Madrid face City, these two go to war with completely different weapons. De Bruyne runs, Kroos walks. But somehow, both dominate. You can't press Kroos. You can't give De Bruyne an inch. Every UCL semi-final they meet in feels like a final. One pass from either of them can change everything. It's not just about stats, it's about control. Kroos controls the rhythm, De Bruyne controls the chaos. And when they face off, you can't blink. Something's always coming. Terry versus Vidic. This was peak Premier League defending. John Terry for Chelsea, Nemanja Vidic for Manchester United. Two captains who'd block a shot with their face if needed. Terry wore the armband like a badge of war. Vidic went into every tackle like it was his last. Headers, clearances, blood-stained shirts. That was normal. Both led legendary backlines. Terry had Carvalho, Ashley Cole, Cech. Vidic had Ferdinand, Evra, Van der Sar. Chelsea versus United wasn't just about goals, it was who survived the battles. They didn't just clear the ball, they made strikers quit trying. Drogba and Rooney up front, these two at the back, every clash was chaos. And yes, the forehead debates were real. Terry had the brave blocks, Vidic had the brick wall forehead. If the ball came into the box, one of them was clearing it. No step-overs, no finesse, just war. Defenders like these don't exist anymore. Do they? Sergio Ramos versus Pique. Teammates for Spain, enemies for life at club level. Ramos for Real Madrid, Pique for Barcelona. Both played hundreds of El Clásicos and somehow kept finding ways to annoy each other. Ramos tackled like a bouncer. Pique trolled like a Twitter king. One was brute force. The other played the offside line like chess. They both won everything. Ramos had more Champions Leagues. Pique had the World Cup and that perfect Spain run. Ramos went into battles. Pique stepped back and intercepted. It was passion versus precision, fire versus freeze. But who's the king of red cards? Ramos took the crown. He's the most sent-off player in La Liga history. Pique just smiled and let Twitter handle the banter. Still, both defined an era in Spain. Different styles, same dominance. Henry versus Ferdinand. Henry was pure style. Ferdinand was all speed and timing. When Arsenal played United, it was this battle that made everything else irrelevant. Henry would drift left, flick it past you, and curl it in. Ferdinand would read the move like a book and shut it down. Invincibles versus Fergie's defence. 2003-4 was the peak. Arsenal went unbeaten. United did everything to stop them. And every time these two faced off, you could feel the respect. But it was never friendly. Ferdinand was fast, but Henry was faster. Rio was strong, but Henry could make you slip with one fake. No fights, no drama, just elite football battles. You couldn't blink when these two were on screen. Ibrahimovic versus Materazzi. Zlatan doesn't forgive. Materazzi found that out the hard way. One clash in Milan, a rough tackle, and Zlatan kept that in the vault. Years later, when he came back to Italy with AC Milan, he saw Materazzi and karate kicked him in the ribs on purpose. Their feud became personal. Inter versus AC Milan was already a war. Add this subplot, and it was madness. Materazzi was the kind of defender who poked, kicked, whispered. Zlatan didn't respond with words, he responded with pain. They weren't even in the same position, but every time they were near each other, something happened. Revenge stories like this don't come around often, and when Zlatan tells it, it sounds like a movie. Cech versus Van der Sar, two giants between the sticks. One wore a helmet, The other wore calm like a second jersey. Cech for Chelsea, Van der Sar for Manchester United. If you were a striker in the 2000s, these two ruined your highlight reels. Cech had that record with 24 clean sheets in a single Premier League season. Van der Sar went 1,311 minutes without conceding. Both had crazy reflexes, command and safe hands. Long balls, claimed, one-on-ones, blocked. They weren't flashy, no crazy tattoos or social media noise, just saves, week after week. Their matchups in big games always felt like goalkeeper clinics. It was like having two brick walls guarding the goal. Who would be on their level today? Buffon versus Casillas. This one was classy. Buffon and Casillas respected each other more than anyone else. Italy versus Spain was always fierce. But these two never showed ego. Buffon was vocal, commanding, and ageless. Casillas was instinctive, quick, and ice-cold in penalties. Over 1,500 games between them. World Cups, Euros, Champions Leagues. From Parma and Juventus to Madrid and Porto, they kept winning. You didn't hear them talk trash. They let the gloves do the talking. When they faced off, fans just watched in awe. Two legends at the same time. One Italian, one Spanish. Both defined what it meant to be a world-class keeper for nearly 2 decades. Suarez versus Chiellini. It started with a bite. 2014 World Cup. Uruguay versus Italy. Suarez sank his teeth into Chiellini's shoulder. No yellow, no red, just shock. Italy crashed out. Uruguay moved on. FIFA handed Suarez a long ban, but the rivalry didn't end there. And also, that was not the only time Suarez would be banned. He did bite again during his Liverpool era, but that's a story for another day. Years later, they met again. Juventus versus Barcelona in the Champions League. Suarez offered a handshake. Chiellini took it. Grown men stuff. No drama, just football. But deep down, nobody forgot the bite. Suarez always played on the edge. Chiellini lived for battles, and when they collided, it felt personal. But somehow, it ended with respect. Roberto Carlos versus Beckham. Both played for Real Madrid. Both loved free kicks. Roberto Carlos was power. Beckham was curl. One hit missiles, the other bent it like a ruler. And even in the same locker room, the competition was real. Carlos was already a Galactico. Beckham came in as the global superstar. Fans wanted to know who took the next free kick. One would blast it through the wall. The other would go around it with style. Training must have been a joke. Imagine watching those two take 20 free kicks each, one shaking the net, the other kissing the post. No arguments, just silent flexing. And fans got the best of both worlds. Messi versus Ronaldo. This one broke football. Messi with 8 Ballon d'Ors, Ronaldo with 5. Over 1,400 goals between them. Every year for over a decade, it was either one or the other. They fought in Spain like it was a two-man war. El Clasico became primetime TV. Messi would float past 5 players like it was nothing. Ronaldo would jump like a basketball player and head it in with power. Their numbers didn't make sense, and yet they did it for over 15 years. They both ruled in different ways. Messi stayed in Barcelona for most of his peak. Ronaldo changed clubs like changing leagues was a hobby. Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, and Saudi Arabia. Here's where it gets interesting. Both won league titles in 4 different countries. One relied on magic, the other on muscles and mentality. And now, even in their late 30s, they're still making headlines like it's 2013 again. Neymar versus Hazard. These two were meant to rule the world after Messi and Ronaldo. Neymar had the flair, the tricks, the golden boy tag. Hazard had the balance, the footwork, the shrug-your-shoulder dribbles. Both were unplayable on their day, and both belonged to a generation that looked ready to take over. Then came 2018. Brazil versus Belgium. Neymar versus Hazard. Belgium won. Hazard ran the game. Neymar flopped a little too hard, but what looked like the passing of the torch never really continued. One went to PSG and broke ankles. Injuries won this rivalry. That's the sad part. Both had all the talent. Neymar still scored goals for fun when fit. Hazard looked like Messi light at Chelsea. But instead of Ballon d'Ors, we got what-ifs. The battle never peaked. It limped off the pitch. And the funny part, after all the Ballon d'Ors, the records, the goals, the fan fights, nobody still knows who the GOAT is. One gave you joy, the other gave you jaw-dropping goals. Every fan has picked a side, but both have already won. Mbappe versus Haaland. This one is still being written. Mbappe has the World Cup. Haaland has the Premier League and a Champions League final. One is speed and flair, the other is strength and explosion. Mbappe dribbles and runs like the ball is glued to his feet. Haaland shoots like a crazy fellow. Both now sit at the top of every goal chart in Europe. Fans already argue who's better. One dances, the other bulldozes. But both score like machines, and in the post-Messi-Ronaldo era, this might be the new headline rivalry. We're just watching the beginning. Love football stories like this? Hit subscribe and join the squad!